Matt.
I'm Kerry.
We are the Stagmer Brothers, a Baltimore knife and sword. We're going to be building some of your favorite weapons, and some weapons that you've never seen before.
This is Man-at-Arms, Reforged.
Kerry and I have spent countless hours playing Counter-Strike ever since beta, so we decided to go head-to-head and do the ultimate knife-making challenge.
So for our Counter-Strike Go build, I've actually decided that what I'm going to do on my challenge end is I'm going to work from a gun, and I'm going to make it into the knife. I've gotten this Manchester Arms Commando Mark 45 that's blown up on the bottom. I think the guys who were firing this were pretty lucky to get away with their life since they blew this thing up. So I'm going to take the remains of this gun, and I'm going to pack it with known materials down in the barrel and up inside of the action, get it really hot, fold it up on itself, and that's what I'm going to make my knife from.
I'm really excited to be doing this knife challenge. Right now, Kerry and I are the leaders of a clan called Cybertron Army, which is the longest existing Counter-Strike clan in the world. I've chosen to do the butterfly knife. For me, I really am focused on performance, so I'm going to use known steels. I'm going to start by doing a Damascus billet with 15 and 20 and 1095. Using the bandsaw, I cut my pieces of 1095 and 15 and 20 that will be stacked and drawn out into my blade. So I'm going to do 4 pieces of 1095 and 4 pieces of 15 and 20. I'll do a few folds, but the knives in the game have a big bold pattern, so I want to keep it low layer, maybe do a twist, a little patterning, but not much because they're really bold in the game, and that's the look I'm going for. After cutting my pieces for my Damascus stack, I clamp them in the vise, tack weld the corners, weld a handle on, and get ready to start forging.
Now that I've decided to make a Karambit, I'm actually going to do most of my work in the grinding. I've got to get enough material out on the point and back around the backside where the finger loop goes. So I'm going to be forging it by hand and on the power hammer until I've got enough material where I want. Then I'm just going to quit forging and go directly to the grinder.
Got my billet slightly preheating a little bit. It's now about ready to use the flux. Got a can of anti-borax. It's originally labeled here as William Moran Jr. Or at least around here, he's considered to be the grandfather of modern knife making. Some of his buoys go on eBay now for $40,000 to $100,000. So I'm hoping to steal a little bit of his juju. The difference between this flux and the borax that we use all the time is this is borax. It's had all the moisture baked out, and then little teeny iron curls are added in there. Helps you get a better weld. I remove my billet from the heat, go to the anvil, and do my initial forge weld by hand. And now it's time to hot cut and fold my billet. At this point, I've done several folds. I started with 7 layers, and I'm now at 28. I'm ready to start drawing out my blade. Now that my billet is fully forged, I'm going to be using a large piece of round stock under the power hammer to forge my back scoops in. This will allow the pattern to flow really nicely along the spine of the blade. I'm pretty much to my desired shape at this point. Just need to pull out that striking edge just a little bit, and then I'll be ready for grinding. I specifically am leaving a lot of meat to grind so that the pattern gets gnarly as I dive into the layers. If I forge my bevel completely, you would see a lot less of that pattern. With both blades more or less at the same point, you now get to see the first comparison side by side.
I've got to be very careful when I'm using mills to cut a hole like this. I really don't know how hard this material is, and I don't have time to soften and temper it all the way. I'm going to use a series of bits starting with 3/16 and work my way up to 1.5 inches. It's going to give me the size hole that I want for the finger ring, I'm just going to have to take my time, keep spraying some oil on it, and cut right through this. Using a 2-inch contact wheel, I go in and just rough edge this blade. I'm going to end up doing a lot of grinding afterwards where I'll have to be very careful to keep it cool. But right now I can just move the material out of the way and then we can get it to heat treating.
Boom! Headshot! Oh.
Since this is a head-to-head competition between me and my big brother, I figured I'd better bring out the big guns. Now that I have the proper measurements of my knife blade, I load the 3D rendering that I've been basing my design off of into AutoCAD and then upload them to the CNC Plasma and cut them to shape. Instead of working with just 2 thick pieces and milling them out, I got 4 of these cut. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna sandwich on either side of the blade like this with pins separating them. Then I'll do a lot of shaping. But from there, they will make a nice handle and the enclosure. Butterfly knife has to be very precise. The sides have to be precision ground, that kind of thing, so when it slides in and out, no friction, nothing happens, it opens easy, or you're gonna get yourself in a real problem if it binds. I'm gonna use my trusty magnet and my eyeballs and just try to grind this as perfect as I can on the grinder before I go to grinding my bevels. After some final shaping on the sander, I'm now ready to start my beveling. In the game, this knife has very distinct hollow ground edges. I hold the blade edge up so that I can see the depth of my plunge as I grind horizontally. The form of the hollow grind is created by the radius of the wheel. In this case, it's a 12-inch wheel. In the game, each handle piece has 4 distinct holes. So I've taken 2 of my handle pieces and I tack welded them together in the back where it's a non-crucial area so I can drill my holes perfectly and they'll all line up straight. So the very last step that I have to do before I can heat treat my blades is I gotta get my pivot holes drilled here and here. Got the center punched here, ready to drill it. Then I'll put my knife blade in, get my locations down, and I'll be able to drill the blade and then get it heat treated. The actuation on the butterfly knife is crucial. I only have 1 shot of drilling the holes in the blade, so I have to get it right the first time. Hey, what you got there?
Hey, nothing.
What are you doing?
What do you got?
Nothing.
Just heat treating?
Alright, I'm ready to heat treat too.
Okay.
Alright.
I place this blade in the heat treating furnace backwards first. That's so that the striking surface on the back side of the ring also hardens up a bit. Then I flip the entire piece over, bring the blade up to temperature, and then move over to the oil and make my quench.
So I've got my knife ready to go into temper now. I've actually got it pretty close to polish. Seeing some interesting lines and stuff from the Damascus, from the folds, from all the pieces from the gun. Don't really know what we're going to get yet, but we're going to put it in the hot oil for an hour. That'll temper it. We'll take it right back out.
While I was polishing, I began to notice a pattern from the gun parts. Now that I'm etching, it really leaps out at me. Using a fine belt on a fairly small wheel, I do some bright work on the back of the handle. I use a narrow belt on the slack belt sander to do my final sharpening. You have to be extremely careful or you'll simply cut right through it.
Now that all my holes are drilled, I'm ready for heat treating. I place the blade into the forge and heat it to my desired temperature, quench it in oil, and check it for straightness. Using a toaster oven for tempering might seem a little silly, but it holds 450 degrees fairly well, has a timer on it, and works very good for small knife blades. Perfect. Before I remove any material from the end of my blade and give it the final shape, I put some iron pins in and bend them over just to check my actuation. Pretty happy with it, to be honest. I've never made a butterfly knife. It's pretty darn cool. Works. Got a little bit more figuring out to do, but I'm pretty darn happy with it so far. Now that the blade is tempered and no longer brittle, I move to the sanders to begin polishing it all out. After playing a few matches last night, I noticed that the butterfly knife has a little trigger on it, so I use a hacksaw and cut my groove. I will then move to the anvil using a tool in the pritchett hole to spread that open, and then I'll draw it out by hand. I use the Scotch-Brite wheel to create my final finish. This leaves me with a perfect surface to go to the etch. I place my blade into the ferric chloride to begin the etch process. This will etch the metal differently, creating that bold pattern that you see in the game. I only have a few things left to do. I'm gonna blacken the handles. In the game, it's obviously a dark color. I'm also gonna add some little slabs in here. Very important to put my locator pin top and bottom to make sure the blade can't rotate like this on me when I'm using it. I'm very happy with this. This is my first butterfly knife, and I think it turned out pretty darn cool. I want to just do a little fine tuning, and it'll be ready to do some damage in the demo. Ooh, salty.
Hey, chicken!
Click here to subscribe or click here to watch more episodes. Thanks for watching Man-at-Arms Reforged. We need to know what you want the guys to build, so tell us in the comments below what weapons you want to see next.